You're listening to The Building Code, your guide for a better way to run your business. I'm Tom Houghton.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul Worth.
Hey, Paul.
I always like to say, hey everybody.
Well, just to, welcome everybody who's listening.
All the listeners.
All the listeners are welcome
Which
here.
we appreciate, every one of you.
We do.
I'm going to plug. Don't forget to tell your friends.
About The Building Code.
Yeah, the podcast.
Yeah.
What's it, like me?
I don't know. Subscribe now to all the things.
Yeah, just to our podcast.
Sure.
And tell the friends about, Tom and Paul.
Exactly.
How they enlighten your day for 20 minutes once a week. Hopefully. That's the plan anyway.
That's good.
Anywho, Tom, go ahead and introduce
we're very honored to bring on our guest today. Danny Wang is joining us from Danny Wang Design. Danny, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We've been really looking forward to this interview.
Oh, likewise. Love just sharing kind of information. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to have a star on. We've had an opportunity a couple times on the podcast. Shout out to our huge social media people who have been on here. But Danny, you've got what? How many followers? It's not a contest, but how many followers do you have?
But if it was a contest, Danny's winning.
You're winning. How many on Instagram?
I think right now 416,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what's your handle?
It's Danny Wang Design.
All right. It's truly awesome. Before I knew this was scheduled about a year ago, I started following Danny just because I follow things in construction, and it's super compelling content. How did you get started with, I'm always into the Instagram stuff. How'd you get started with Instagram, and when did you know it was like going to be something that was truly a game changer for your business, or at least a lead source for your business?
So I think most people know, I actually just started Instagram about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I started out just kind of, as a way of voicing my opinions, voicing my thoughts. It wasn't very business related. And, we'll post like the projects that we're doing, etc. I didn't take it seriously until I think at that time we had about 3,000 or 4,000 followers. Someone else was running my account. Mm-hmm. So we started getting leads. I was like, oh, how are these people finding me? Because I'm just here and posting like my day, posting like random projects I do. I don't even know about stories. I didn't know about that. So long story short, we closed that deal, and it was kind of crazy because, when we walked in, I felt like they knew who I was already without, because usually when you go sell a job, they ask you, okay, what does your company do? What's their background, et cetera, et cetera. It's like getting to know each other, right? It's like an interview. But with this, I felt it was just so weird. They were like, okay, I'm going to use you. I'm not going to interview anybody else. I like your design. I like your work. And I was kind of blown away by it, because I was like, wow, how does this person, even though they were close, they were probably 30 minutes away from me, how did they find me when, I wasn't even reaching out? Mm-hmm. So we closed that deal, and I was really impressed. I was more intrigued. I'm always very intrigued by things I don't understand, right? So I got more and more into it. I was like, oh, now this platforms allow me to reach people I don't even know that are looking at my jobs. So I started doing it more and more. As soon as I started doing it was about a year ago. I saw one of my friends did before and after posts. I was like, oh, I got tons of those, right? Like, I've been in business for 14 years. I've been doing a lot of projects. Let me do one. And I think it was probably like the third or fourth post that I did before and after. It went viral. I think it got like 30 or 40,000 likes. So then from then on, it just kind of skyrocketed. I was like, oh, for me to make before and after photos is actually quite easy. Yeah, right? Because I have a lot of before, because I'm doing the construction and the design. So I guess it just kind of took off from there, and we've just kind of, been steady growing pretty rapidly since then.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the before and after up, because that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, that's a pretty big part of what you post. There's got to be something in the human condition where they just like that.
Yeah,
right?
it's great to see the progress.
It's why all the construction shows on HGTV and all of those do well. It's basically a before and after, right? And you want to see that final thing. I think that's really awesome.
I think that's really where, because I think for me, Instagram was always, so many people post the finished project, like the finished photo, but really they don't tell you how to get there. So more and more I started, just sharing, just even how I got to my business and how I got to these projects. And I realized, hey, more and more people, they like to hear that, right? Especially I started with kind of interesting background. So I think just that adds to the narrative.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to ask you about your interesting background, but one thing I want to drive home to the contractors that are listening, you brought up two great points about social media. One, it's a new way to advertise that doesn't cost you dollars, like the normal way of doing it, like paying something or some platform. It definitely costs you time. So it gets you leads without that marketing expense. But two, I think the one thing you brought up, we've heard before, in construction, you get a bunch of leads and you qualify them. They qualify you and you qualify them as a possible good client. This sort of takes that step largely out of there, which is a huge step in time because they know you and they know that the types of stuff you do, and they know that they probably have the budget for it because they see the types of stuff you do. Maybe the budget's still kind of a concern, but those are two really important things social media can do. So we preach this a lot there.
Yeah.
You got to get on social media and just post. Yeah. So you said your background. Tell us a little bit about your background.
And your company.
Yeah.
I actually had no construction background. So I was in high school. My dad was a contractor. I was a project manager for him. I was in real estate development. That's what I went to school for, finance, real estate development. And the reason I got into construction is that is a big portion of real estate development. That's a huge cost of it. So I said, hey, you know what? I want to do real estate development. Let me go learn how to do construction to just kind of understand it. So I did construction for about 10 years, worked with various designers. One long story short, one day, all the designers, the lead time was just so long that, so I said, hey, you know what? I need to really get this in. So I started designing myself. And I just kind of picked up from there. I didn't know I could design. I was like, I didn't know people pay me for design. So it just kind of took another life on its own. So that was kind of what I've been pushing is, hey, I came from no construction background. I got to where I am. I came from no design background. I got to where I am. So that's kind of like the narrative that I push. It's just, you don't always have to be confined to what you're learning, you're studying. As long as you have the will to learn, you can make it, right? So
that's awesome. The will to learn. I mean, I think that it echoes in your designs that you create. I've watched many of your lives as you go through and kind of like just play around. That's ultimately what you're doing is you're just trying to figure out a way to create something different and new. And I think that's what makes your work stand out among other people's. I think everybody else you kind of get in that habit of just doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm sure you probably face that as well yourself, but you do a really good job of trying to push yourself to create new designs and push design to the next level.
Yeah, and also just bottom line is, I preach this a lot. It's no excuse, right? Like, I don't know how to run a marketing agency. I have one of the largest followings in my niche, so right. It just as long as you can't. I think a lot of it is self-doubt. It's like, hey, I can't do this, then I'm not gonna do it. For me, it's like, well, if I can't do it, I'm gonna go try and do it, right? Like figure out what it is. And I think that's really what, one of the key points that I drive on my social media is you can't let that doubt eliminate you, right? Like stop you from doing it. You just go out and do it. You'll figure out, okay, maybe this is not right for me. This is not, but at least you learn from that process, right? And that's how I did it for design, right? I didn't just start up instantly and say, hey, let's design just really cool things. Same thing. I have to pitch maybe 10 design to one client and say, hey, this is really what I want. And eventually, you get the clients that that let you do that, right? So it's really funny because everybody thought that I kind of just started my business last year, but it's actually I've been in business for 14 years.
I like to dive into the actual X's and O's and people because I think some people are like, yeah, just start it yourself, but where do you start? So I'm truly curious. So did you literally just start by drawing things on a paper and then trying to figure out? Did you research design software? And then go, okay, well, I got to go learn that. And like, can you actually take us through, not for an hour, but like, how did it actually start?
No, for me, it's a little odd, right? I started from the constructing background. So I actually saw what all the designers drew. And I think that's one of the things that we wanted to cover, right? How do you have a healthy designer contractor relationship? It's very difficult because I was always the guy that the designer draws a concept and just throws it to me and say, hey, you go figure out how to do it. And in my mind, I was like, okay, let me see how I can make this work, right? But over time, it's just like, well, if I already know how it's gonna be, why don't I just draw it, right? So that's why you see a lot of times I doodle, because the way it works in my head is I already see the finished project. I'm not gonna sit there and draw a bunch of detail plans to show what I'm gonna build. I already know how to build it. But as we expand our company, that we're working with people all over the world, now we realize, okay, we need to draw really detailed plans to show them exactly what we need to build it. But it's not everybody has the design and build background, but I think with the design now is just, we try to do it a little bit differently. Like draw it as how it will actually get built.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's good.
any software could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you talked about the relationship side of it. I'm sure, I guess, has there been experience that you've had? I'm sure most people have had this experience where designers will come and say, hey, we've got this crazy idea, and they probably typically hear no. But it sounds like from you, you're willing to at least just say yes and try to figure out a way to do it. What's that process like?
Well, obviously they like to hear it. Everybody likes to hear yes, right? But what they don't see in the background is then, we have to do a lot of studies. We have to really take a lot of time figuring it out. Just like my doodle takes me 5 minutes, but really my construction team, my team takes probably 40, 50 hours to figure, to draw out all the details. So I think you can't, back to the no doubting yourself part is, I figure I could do it. It's just how long and how will I take and how much money it will cost to get there, right? So
sure. Do you feel like your designs and I guess your inspiration now, do you feel like it's just kind of like a self-evolving thing, or are you pulling from other sources of inspiration as well that you see out online or around in the areas that you're building?
So when I first, also I didn't go to design school, but really a lot of my inspiration comes from working with talented designers, right? They were like my teachers. So I worked with a lot of top designers. I kind of understood how everybody did their design. Okay, what's the pros and cons of each design, how everybody kind of just thinks. Currently, the way it works at my firm is I usually deal with the client that says, hey, you could do whatever you want, right? Because obviously they see my portfolio. So I said, okay, well, if you want me to go push a limit, this is kind of, what's in my head. So that's a very fortunate position. And what I try to do is I have my staff, they handle, they're still working on the in-between process. Okay, I have this client, they want to do this, go and kind of handle it. And on the way, you learn how that process is. So we're kind of setting up where before I would turn down a lot of jobs that they don't want to do what I want to do, right? But now we're kind of recapturing it to say, okay, my staff could handle this. And also, it's always better that you have multiple. Design's not a one-sided thing. When you have more input, the more creative, comes out, right? Like even after, for me, if I design, maybe 4 or 5 designs in a row, it gets kind of boring. It all kind of looks the same. Mm-hmm. So I bring in new people and, kind of they stimulate also my design. I'm stimulating their design. So yeah, it's collaborative effort.
Yeah, and that's something that's interesting. So you find in design that it's collaborative, because we talked a lot of this in construction, and there's an evolution in construction, which we're all huge fans of. It's less competitive. Like, 10 builders in Austin, Texas are less secretive. They're more, hey, let's share and let's raise the entire industry, and let's not be so secretive. There's enough, clients to go around. So do you find the same thing in design and I guess architecture, that they are willing to share and teach?
No.
All right, we're still working there.
That's a fair. I think that goes with creative people, though. I mean, creative people can be very hands-on with the material that they create, but I'll let you speak to that more.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely different training of thoughts, and also because design is something that it's almost like, I think design is very like, because I deal with the trade, right? Like building is very systematic. Like you could systemize it. Mm-hmm. Like how we build this, you can systemize it. Design is very personal and emotional, right? Like it's with the client, every client is different. So it's very hard to, I wouldn't say it's competitive, but it's very hard to, it's hard to value. So that's why we still keep the build side, right? Like, let's just say a lot of times I'll bring in my design fee. My clients will be super shocked how much my design fees will be. But let's say if we construct it, because they could see the actual value, like they could see the actual thing, then they value the design.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very hard to compete on that because you have people in different states, different countries that's doing design for a lot less, but really they don't have the experience that brings in the like how to build it, right? They might just, like I said, we count it as an alphabet, it's A to Z. They're only bringing A, but they're not bringing the B to Z part. But because we're bringing A to Z, then that value to our clients, to to the contract that we work with, is valuable. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think that's good too, because you can kind of oversee the entire process as well. It's kind of nice to know it's in the hands of the person who actually envisioned this project from start to finish.
Yeah, so that's why sometimes I like trash talking, but that's why I always tell my clients, when you look at a designer's page, look at the actual pictures, because nowadays the software is so easy to build, to make a project look so pretty, but really if they don't have physical project that's built, like for me it's always about, you could talk all you want, but if you don't have anything to show for it, then all your credibility is lost, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I do my designs.
Yeah, it's great.
Like it.
I mean, you definitely deliver on it, and again, that's evident in the stuff that you post on social media. Speaking of social media, we know you're a big fan of TikTok. And
really?
You've seen some success there.
This.
Well, definitely reposting. And I think that's kind of what we want to talk about a little bit. Obviously, a huge following on Instagram, but you obviously repost some of the stuff that you do on TikTok. What benefit are you seeing in using TikTok? What was that like? What did you have to make that decision of oh gosh, here goes another social media platform I've got to be on, and
No, we don't look at it like that, because the way we look at it, the way I look at it is, you create we're creating content once, and then you're spreading to multiple platforms. Versus I'm not gonna say, hey, I'm making, I don't treat it as chore, right? It's not a chore for me to make extra video. Whereas I look at it as, because I'm making that, I put it on Instagram, and I'm actually not a very good video editor. I don't have that skill. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could learn, but just at this point, it's not the best use of my time. So what I do is, I found out that TikTok has a really easy video editor. So, it takes me like 5 minutes to make a video, and it has the music, and what does well there, most of the time does well here too on Instagram. So you're just creating one piece of content, translating it, and I actually start doing LinkedIn as well. So just use one piece of content for cross-platform.
Yeah, that's a great tip, because it takes a lot of time to be on all these social media platforms. We talked about this, but it definitely delivers results. Now, what's your so you're dancing on TikTok? Is that
No.
Dancing?
No,
I don't mean that as a shot, because I think I have a TikTok out there. I have 4 girls. They threw me on one. So we're definitely not posting that in the show notes, though.
No, so I still try to keep. For me, it's about consistency, right? So I do a lot before and afters. I do a lot in between process. So obviously, maybe I'll get more views dancing around, but really, that's not really part of my brand, right? Like people, I don't even show my face, right? This is the first time you guys see me. I don't need. I mean, yes, maybe if I were to build a personal brand just based on my personal life, yes, maybe I'll go do the goofy things. But I think because I'm still trying to sell my construction design as part of my brand, that's why I show on TikTok as well. So I do a lot of music transitions. What I realized, people really like matching the music with the beats.
Yep.
And the music, sometimes these are extra tips of engagement, right? Sometimes I'll put a really trendy song, I'll get 5 posts saying, hey, what song is this? Right?
Yeah.
So
that's great.
So multiple avenues to get that engagement. It's just for me, that's why I think I've been posting content that's very similar to TikTok, like the rawness. Like if you look at my feed, it looks like trash, right? It's all over the place. It's not super detailed. It's not clean. It's not that I didn't want that. I have very clean and neat looking profile, right? But that didn't work. So by communicating the rawness of it, I think that's what people like. Even that's why I think TikTok's getting so much popularity. It's not look, hey, how pretty I am. How it's like, look, I'm goofy. It's fun. So that's why I try to create the fun content and that's kind of how I portray myself as well on Instagram. So
it's relatable. And I think a lot of businesses are trying to figure out, how do I use TikTok? Because it started so much as, that personal, dancing to the song stuff. I mean, my kids literally do it all day long. I swear. They're practicing. So I think check out Danny's TikTok page and you'll see how to use it for your business. And it can be just as effective, maybe even more. I mean, I don't know the stats, but the followers are out of control.
It's definitely the fastest growing network.
I started in November, and literally it's hit or miss, right? Like sometimes it's so what I don't like about TikTok, that it's hit or miss. It's really difficult to build a following. Like with this, I have very low, like with Instagram, I feel like I have very loyal engagement. With TikTok, it's kind of like the Wild West. Like I'll have videos. I have one video that's about to hit 2 million views, and my new videos only have 1,000 views. So it's very all over the place. But I mean, like I said, you create it in such a new platform that we treat it like real estate, right? Like you go in, I think I have 80 something thousand followers, right? If we could get that many followers within the infant phase, if it ever takes off like Instagram, maybe we'll have millions of followers.
Right. It's just so crazy. So many eyeballs on your name and your business. I mean, it's like such a new world.
It is.
Yeah. So it was funny. I was talking to, I think Brad. I think you guys know Brad, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I did a podcast for him last week, and on that early on that day, I actually had one client that called me, one potential client that called me. He's like, "Hey, I saw you from TikTok," and then I went to a website. So I mean, it is happening, I guess.
It's working.
Yeah.
So, I think it's great. I think, again, our listeners, builders, they're hesitant because they have that viewpoint of like, oh, it is another social media network that I've got to go put time and effort into. But I love your tip there, that just repurpose the content. Take what you can build. Obviously, you said you can build better videos there, and you found that. Do that, and then just repost it somewhere else. I mean, it's the same content. It's still you. It's still your business. It's still your brand. You're just saving time and effort. And of course, we're all looking for those efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I think too many people get focused on what the content looks like. I have content that is so low res that it just still gets like 100,000 views, right? 200,000 views, 300,000 views. So I think it's the quality of the content, not the quality of like what the content looks like.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's your voice and what you're saying and what you're doing. That's what resonates with people.
So I think that's really what social media is about, right? It's no longer about, hey, look, I have the perfect life, I have the perfect picture. So I think, that's really one thing that I had to learn, and that's really helped me in transition.
That's awesome. So you're obviously focused. I mean, you seem to do business kind of all over the world. You're mainly focused in the Southern California area. Is there building? I mean, obviously you've got to deal with earthquakes out there, building codes that are probably a pain to deal with. How does that affect your design? I mean, obviously you've been doing this for 14 years, so you've obviously gained some experience over the years. But when you go into stuff, do you ever feel limited by kind of where geographically you're building?
No. I don't think so. But one thing that I am learning is, because all the worldwide stuff, that's new. That's literally because we have Instagram. So I am learning different types of architecture, different type of building materials, limited resources. Let's say I have people that contact me from Africa. Like I don't even know what their building technologies out there, right? Do they even have a building code? Do they have earthquakes? So I'm still stuck with kind of how I'm building things. So what more and more I learned is, if I'm working with an area that I'm not familiar with, I try to partner up with a local pro out there. Yeah. So let's say if I just got a phone call yesterday from someone in Vancouver, right? Vancouver. I don't know how to build in Vancouver, but let me communicate. I know how I build stuff here. Let me communicate how you guys do things here, so I can understand and then design around how you guys do things. Yeah.
And then that contractor has a new job, and it all works out, right?
Yeah. I think that's really back to how designers and contractors, the designer that I worked with before, I don't want to say this because sometimes I have an ego, but it's their way, my way. But Tree has a different view. It's like I'm the support of the contractor, right? Because they're the person that's gonna make it built. Like they're gonna build it. So let's take that reverse thinking. It's like, hey, my job is here to support you, not to put my ego over you.
Yeah. In a previous podcast, we talked about this with the trades. Is like, if you do the framing, you want somebody to come after you to make your framing look good, like the next contract. And the same thing with design. Like, you can design till the cows come home, but if the contractor can't perform it and deliver your vision, then
What's
it's
the
all
point?
for naught.
Yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
more and more team effort, and I've been working on it. It's a little bit difficult, but I've been working more on team focused effort. All my staff look up to me, and
Sure.
if I have huge egos, I start developing. It's like bad habit, feed on bad habit. So I learned to kind of separate that, in and out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think there's a difference between ego and confidence.
That's right, Tom. That's what I was going to say. I mean, I think
it's a very blurred line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually funny. That's what Instagram. This is how I started Instagram. I was using this as a creative outlet where I could say, in the beginning, obviously now I kind of have to be careful what I say, right? In the beginning, it was I could let all the ego in my world out, right? Mm-hmm. I could say whatever the hell I want on Instagram. Yeah. If I only had 1,000 followers, I don't even know. Then that's why I started. I was like, I didn't even know who these people were, so I'm gonna go talk, wherever the hell I want to speak, and and that's kind of how I separate what I do in the office and what I do in, and that's why even like nowadays people I crack jokes on Instagram, things like that. But at the office, I can't do that.
Right.
So sometimes people meet me in real life. It's like, how come you're so serious in real life and you're so jovial on Instagram? Because that's really my true personality. I just have to be careful what I do in my office, because these people, they work for me, they look up to me, and I need to have a professional character.
Yeah, well, and that's why you built the Instagram following, though. It's you're authentic, which I think is a good tip for everybody.
It is, and I love that you mentioned it earlier. You're always learning, and I think that is just what we look for, especially in our podcast guests. Is we're looking for people in the industry like yourself who are just always constantly trying to make it a better experience, delivering a better customer experience, but also just delivering a better product. And I think that's, again, what you've just done as a huge cornerstone of your company. It's very apparent in what you post is you deliver an exceptional experience, an exceptional product.
Yeah, if it's more like this, like I always look at it, if this person, if kind of like clients, right? I have so many jobs where they're like, oh, well, in fact, one of my most popular posts before was this little swimming pool in the side yard. And how we got that project was everybody said, no, I can't, the client can't put a swimming pool. So I said, you know what, let me figure out, then I was able to squeeze in, a swimming pool. And at that point, the price, and it's no longer competitive, right? Like, I'm the only person that's able to do this. Everybody else is not able to. So automatically we get the job. So I think you just carry that attitude with, obviously you got to do it with caution, and you got to follow codes and things like that. But you just kind of carry, okay, I don't know if I could do it, but the way it is I'm going to try. Like, I'm going to try and figure out how to do it, right? Versus just say, hey, let's shut it down. I think that's really, really a good point to the client see. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like this guy actually cares, and he's trying, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today and sharing your design experience and your industry experience, your social media experience. You've got a lot of experience working for you there. So thank you so much for sharing that. Again, we wish you the best of success in your business going forward. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure as well.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Love what you heard? Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear from more guests that will benefit your business. Also, please check out our show notes page for more information on what we discussed on this episode. You can find it at buildertrend.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Building Code.
Appreciate you.